when you have any pack, you'll get a dominant emerges. And so these alphas emerge. There are two in the film who are very, very dangerous. They're like infected on steroids.
They're quite a threat to me anatomically, I would say.
Yeah, there's a lot of concern about the size of their appendage, which has gone round, which is a subject of discussion that you can imagine at Sony Pictures when they saw the film.
It would have been a nightmare on a first date, Dan, I'll be honest with you. Danny Boyle, welcome to Home Time.
Thank you very much.
It's so good to have you on. 28 years later, an incredible film, a proper scary British movie. We've been buzzing since we watched it. It's absolutely incredible. Were you worried about returning to something so good? Because, you know, going back to a lit firework, it could end up like Gladiator 2. Do you know what I mean?
I can't possibly comment on that, but I do appreciate the sentiment. Yes, it's a danger with something that's very beloved, that when you return, you disappoint people. And I think one of the things that helped us was there was such a long passage of time since the original. It's like 22 years. And it's sort of, we decided to let that free us of worrying about following it too closely. And then that gave us the time lapse. We thought, if it's 28 years, then you have a whole territory of time passing that becomes the subject of the film. So, for instance, a group of survivors, people love considering apocalypse. I don't think anybody wants to live through an apocalypse.
But nearly there, mate. We're nearly there.
But if you see it happen, you think, well, how would I survive? Would I be one of the farmers? Would I be one of the guards? What would I do? So there's all that. There's the virus, how it has survived in the time. Yep. This rage virus, which is our core kind of threat in the film. And then there's a boy who's born like outside our time because he's born 16 years into the apocalypse. Yep. With very little reference points to what we imagine our world will be, because their world has stopped in 2002 or 2000, and it's now. So he's the way they say people are digital natives. He's like I don't know what sort of native he is. He's like an analog native.
Yeah.
Except there isn't any analog. There's no vinyl or anything like that. And he's the core of the film.
Obviously, you talk about like 23 years on from the rage virus initially. Obviously, this film is actually done where it comes at a time after the audience have actually started to live through another virus outbreak in real life. Now, obviously, we don't have the type of infected as you do in the movie, but was there anything that you kind of thought, that's interesting, that's the kind of thing that I would want to reflect on in the movie this time?
Obviously, it's not the most obvious one, which is that everybody kind of referenced the fact that cities were emptied or appeared to be emptied overnight, that the nature of them, which changed literally in front of your eyes. That seemed just the province of movies, of Hollywood and kind of stuff like that. But suddenly it was true of every city around the world. And we decided to set ours outside the city in the countryside. So after that initial impulse to protect yourself and hyper defensive, alert, masks, gloves, disinfectants everywhere.
Spraying shopping.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. Gradually, as it went on, as the months went on, you started to take. We did, didn't we?
Making banana bread.
But you started to wear the mask less.
Yeah.
And you kind of like stepped outside more, and you went further and then you went back on the tube, and the tubes were still a bit empty, but there were one or two souls on there. And that influenced us because 28 years later, you would be taking enormous risks with your safety because you'd have learnt the parameters. So our film begins with this man, played by Aaron Taylor-Johnson, this father, taking his 12-year-old son to the mainland where the infection is, from their home on this Causeway Island, Holy Island, taking him to the mainland for his first blooding, for his killing. That's insane. 28 days after the infection breaks out, but 28 years after that's human behaviour, yeah.
How much fun is it being creative in what you've been able to do with how different some of the infected are 28 years on?
Well, that's the great thing about the 28 years time lapse again, because you can show how the people have survived and what their culture is now. But you also have to ask, what's the virus done? It evolves, it changes, and particularly when it's challenged with its extinction. Because the authorities in quarantining the islands of Britain expect it to die out. But it's evolved, and some of the creatures have learned to use less energy and live on the ground and just eat what they can find on the ground, worms and slugs and beetles and berries. The middle infected, who you'll recognise because they look like the infected from the original film, have learned to eat and drink. And to eat, you have to hunt. And to hunt, you have to be, on a very basic level, organised. So they now no longer random. They hunt in packs. And when you have any pack, you'll get a dominant emerges. And so these alphas emerge. There are 2 in the film who are very, very dangerous. They're like infected on steroids. They are extremely dangerous, and they're the main. They're the main threat.
They're quite a threat to me anatomically, I would say.
Yeah, there's a lot of concern about the size of their appendage, which has gone round. Which is a subject of discussion that you can imagine at Sony Pictures when they saw the film.
It would have been a nightmare on a first date, Dan, I'll be honest with you. Now, I like to feel like I can spot things in movies, Danny. And I'd noticed 3 things in the film which said that we absolutely loved. I just wanted to put you very, very quickly, and you just confirm yes or no, quick fire, deny or say, give it a positive. First of all, the little lad's called Spike, his mum's called Isla. Spike Island, is that a Stone Roses reference?
Oh, first time I've heard it.
Oh, there you go.
Very good.
There's always a
very
conspiracy
good.
theory.
Very good.
Second, is Cillian Murphy in the movie as an infected?
He's not.
Are you sure?
Positive.
He looks just like him.
Oh, he does, doesn't he? And I hadn't realised that. And somebody said to me, everybody will think that's Cillian Murphy. And I said, don't be stupid. And I've learned to have to apologise for that remark because everybody did think it was Cillian Murphy. No, he's a producer on the film. He will appear in the trilogy of films. So we're planning 2 more films, one of which has been shot. He will appear in that film, and he will play a significant major role in the 3rd film.
Okay, cool. That's good. And then the final thing, and we were talking about this when we left the screening of the film, is that actual Sycamore Gap tree, or did you have to do a CGI one because those 2 thick blokes cut it down?
Yeah, we did.
You had to CGI it?
It is.
Isn't that a shame?
Yeah, except that we also wanted to show that in resurrecting it, there's a kind of hope, really. We do it with technology now, and
Great.
eventually nature will do it, yeah.
Brilliant. I love that. That's fantastic.
Speaking of technology, shooting it with these.
Yes.
I mean, when I think of some of the videos that I can do with my phone, they're horrendous. There'll often be a thumb in it. 20 iPhones, a rig of them at one point. That's amazing. And also, what are you like with an iPhone in your hand? Do you take a good picture yourself, despite being this celebrated director?
Well, I describe them as reasonable. Nothing more on my own productions. It was wonderful we used very simple technology when we made the first film, domestic video cameras. Since then, technology's moved on, and the smartphones now record at a resolution that's equal to anything cinema needs. So you have the opportunity to shoot at what's called 4K. I wouldn't shoot your home videos at that. Your iCloud storage will go through the roof. The costs of storing it, but
You don't want to know what he's got in his iCloud storage.
no, we don't. No.
He's just made a movie on iMovie.
It's incredible.
But we can use them to leave a very light footprint in the areas we work in. And because you don't need all the heavy equipment that comes with them all the time, that comes with traditional cameras the whole time. It also allowed us to build these special rigs, which is what we were referring to about the 20 iPhones, which is like a poor man's bullet time. You know the Keanu thing in The Matrix? Oh, it's allowed us to do a flexible and movable version of that we could carry with us onto location and fix in different areas. And it's to capture the violence, some of the brutal violence that you get in a horror movie. It's to capture that in a startling and original way, we hope.
There is much brutal violence. Obviously, that's what people would expect. I wasn't expecting the emotional gut punch that I received in the movie. Would it be fair to say that that's a surprise that people might get?
It's hard, isn't it? Because you want it to... One of the reasons it is a surprise, of course, is that people don't know it's coming.
Yeah.
So going around on radio shows talking about it, it's sort of like you've got that kind of like... But yes, there is a surprise in the second half of the film. The film is built up of 2 journeys. The one of the boy with his father, which is not unexpected. It's kind of quite traditional. It's about that male passage of rights where he teaches that people do it in hunting societies. They pass on, they want their first blood, except it's killing humans, infected, who are still human-shaped. The second part of the film is his journey with his mother, which has other purposes and other outcomes. And one of those outcomes is very moving, yes. The film, horror fans will be glad to know that the film does return to its horror roots.
Does it ever?
Right at the very end. So they won't go home slightly perplexed.
Music's such a big part of the movies that you make, and you've arrived at these studios, Danny, here at Absolute Radio, in the middle of quite a big cultural moment for us. We are celebrating our Britpop summer, and your movie Trainspotting was kind of front and centre of that era. At the pinnacle of Britpop summer, and the thing that a lot of people are talking about is that kind of classic battle between Oasis versus Blur. If you had to pick a side, Danny Boyle, what would you go for? I am wearing a Blur shirt. I'm not trying to lead you in any way. But do you have an allegiance out of the two?
Oh, I'm from Manchester, so it's very difficult for me to pick anything other than the lads from Manchester, obviously, even though they're Man City fans, which I'm not. But yeah, no, it was weird thing to be part of.
Yeah.
To be shuffling around. I'm not sure how vigorous a part I think the badge was stuck on us more than earned, but at the time. But it was a very nice movement to be part of. Yeah.
So you're 100% going Oasis in this debate.
I just hope. All I'll say is I hope they play Hindu Times when they play Heaton Park.
You've got young fathers doing the music in this movie. Well, at what stage does the soundtrack come into movie making for you? Because like Trainspotting is such a, you've got the revival of Blur and Pulp now. Like, what stage do you consider the music?
There are ideas right from the beginning, and we asked young fathers to do the soundtrack right early on, and then what we do is the editor and I, we have a soundtrack, a playlist that we share with them, and then we send them bits of the film that we've used some of these tracks to cut to, either as needle drops, traditionally, that you hear a song, or in this case, just as examples of how a scene might be felt musically. And then they send their response back. It's like a call and response backward and forward. And they did they're a wonderful band. They're a kind of like a kind of crazy, mental version of the Beach Boys, but from the toughest estates in Edinburgh. Yeah. But they harmonise, they vocalise, they draw influences from all over the world. They're a wonderful band, and they'd never done a movie before, so it was a big risk giving them the film, but they've responded magnificently, I think.
I do a podcast called Scarred for Life, which is about the dystopian pop culture that kind of surrounded us in the 70s and 80s. And talking about, people who grew up with this world where the bomb might end your life at any minute, and accident on railway lines and all that kind of stuff. Government safety films to do with rabies, etc. And I genuinely felt watching the film, it was almost talking to what is commonly referred to as the haunted generation. The people that grew up, kids that grew up with that kind of stuff. Do you think it was like a throwback to that kind of previous era when everything seemed like it was out there, was waiting to kill you?
Wow, yeah, no, you can certainly read it like that. And one of the things that's interesting about cinema is that when you gather people together, it's a wonderful way to express ideas like that. The collective experience, like you're talking about Oasis touring, and you talk about football or about live theatre or rugby matches, even cricket matches. The collective experience where you pull all these references together, they have a resonance, even though people don't need to talk to each other about them, but you can feel them off the screen. And it's one of the wonderful things that horror has it's not reignited it, but it's secured it in cinema. People talk about movies. One of the dangers with movies is people wait and watch it. I'll wait to see that and watch it on streaming. People don't think that about horror. They want to go and see the horror. They get that injection of something, whatever it is, that connects with those fears that we all carry about whatever they are. Hot metal is my biggest fear, for instance.
Oh, really?
Don't get me going. I nearly swore then.
Is that because of like government safety films?
May well be. It's
have you experienced hot metal?
If you're doing the ironing, if somebody's doing the ironing and I go by and they lift it up, I'm like, whoa! That's the big one for me. It's hot metal for some reason. Not that I've had any experiences with it, but maybe it is from government information. Films saying be careful with hot metal.
There you go, Scarred for Life.
Yeah, there you go.
And Ray Fiennes is great in the movie as well,
Wow,
isn't he?
yeah.
Naked and covered in iodine,
Yes.
which is fantastic. I always think that's, if society was to break down, that's what all lab technicians from GCSE would look like if they were allowed to do their own thing. How's it working with him? Because he's just such a fantastic actor, isn't he?
He is. And he appears towards the end of our film as a kind of inverse Kurtz, from Apocalypse Now or Heart of Darkness. And again, the resolution with him is surprising. Even more so when you step into the second film, which he dominates. So he's a character who carries you into a second world that you meet in the second film, which we've shot as well and is out that comes out in January.
Oh,
so
wow.
his story continues with the Jack O'Connell figure who plays the Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal, as he's called at the end of the film.
Alfie Williams playing Spike in this one, 14, right at the beginning of his career, and the performance he puts in, you must sometimes just stand back and be like, wow, what have we unearthed here? This is magnificent.
I blame Harry Potter. It's the standard of child acting
14
has gone through the roof.
Yeah.
It really has, and he was an exceptional one. But the standard in Newcastle, which is where we were looking for kids, was phenomenal. And it is Harry Potter. I think kids look at these films over many, many, many years. So generations of kids are looking at them and going, oh, that's my accent. That's my language. It's not like a Hollywoodized version, which is where you normally see the kids. And go, I could do that. And I'll have a go at that. And it becomes something a bit like the way football's carried on amongst kids. It's like that. And you could feel the effect it's had upon them. So it's not just affected literacy, the Harry Potter thing. It's not just brought that back, book reading. It's introduced the idea of I could do acting. And he's an exception. And he's playing a 12-year-old. He was just 12, 13 when we cast him. And he's unrecognisable now. It's really tough.
It's big lad.
When we started, his shoe size was 6.5. And when we finished, it was 9.5.
A continuity nightmare.
Well, that is a
Can you
nightmare.
imagine? That's like your feet growing like that overnight, like some kind of other horror movie, yeah.
And I mean, you just alluded to it there, and we won't give anything away, but the ending is incredible. For me, I described it to Richie when we were on the way out the screening. It was a little bit like, and going back to that kind of Scarred for Life VHS video nasties thing, it reminded me of watching Zulu and then your dad's tape match of the day on the last 5 minutes.
Yes.
And it's something completely different appears at the end, and it's incredible.
Yes.
How do you feel about the world's about to see the ending? How do you feel about it?
We've been kind of promoting the film in America and Europe, where it means nothing to them, really. They don't really see what it means. So bringing it home to Britain, where it will provoke a number of responses, I think. It's rooted. When I read it, I thought, because it's linked to the second film as well, when those characters dominate along with Ray Fiennes, his character. And it's linked. It's the best bit of screenwriting I've seen since Clockwork Orange. It's in that world. So it's very hardcore and very disturbing, but absolutely truthful. The nature of the second film is about evil, and it really occupies that territory beautifully, yeah.
Can't imagine.
We have to sometimes pretend to like movies when we do this
Yes, I bet
job.
you do.
And this is one of those rare moments where we just think that honestly go and see it because it's incredible. 28 years later, out in cinemas at the end of this week. Go and see it. Danny Boyle, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys,
Cheers,
very
Danny.
much.